I'm Chimwemwe Mangazi with Business Time on Times. This is a magazine program where we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines. In today's program, the Malawi Revenue Authority, MRA, launches an ambitious corporate strategic plan to push the country's tax to GDP ratio to 20%. Also in the program, the Competition and Fair Trading Commission, CFTC, says legal appeals against its decisions are hindering enforcement of its decisions. We have these and other stories. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome. The Malawi Revenue Authority on Monday launched its Corporate Strategic Plan 2026 to 2031, setting a target to push the country's tax to GDP ratio from 16.83% to 20% over the next 5 years. This is coming at a time when the government is being forced to reduce dependence on external aid and external borrowing as donors shift their approach to working with developing countries. We have more in this report.
According to the plan, government targets revenue collections of 6.07 trillion kwacha in the 2026 to 2027 financial year, rising steadily to 22.51 trillion kwacha by 2030 to 2031. The document also sets a goal of digitizing 100% of MRA's core processes by the final year, up from just 15% currently, while on-time filing rates are expected to climb from 71% to 90%. Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Decentralization, Joseph Mwanamveka, says the new plan is not just an internal roadmap, but a contract between the taxman and citizens.
So the launch of this strategic plan for 2026-2031, it is very important for MRA and also for government because it has given us the pathway how we can modernize, how we can improve on the revenues. What is more exciting to me, I think there are key issues that are coming out from that strategy. One, we are talking about widening the tax base. We are bringing the issue of efficiency. We also bring the issue of digitization. I think if these can work, I would guarantee you that, and also bring even research, because we want evidence-based research, which is going to inform our policy. So these four issues, to me, are very important and have been highlighted in the strategic plan. And as I said, I'm quite excited. I'm also excited with the fact that the MRA is performing. You have noted that they have made the targets, and I'm quite certain that with this strategic plan, we are going to even achieve more going forward. I think domestic revenue mobilization is very important for a number of reasons. One, because donor support is coming down. I think we have noted that. It's coming down, not only in Malawi, but I think worldwide. I think you see that the donor support is coming down because of the geopolitical tensions and many other factors in other countries. Secondly, there's the issue also of, you have noted that as we are talking about globalization, when we're talking about as we are signing agreements with the COMESA, SADC, the Africa Free Trade Area, you'll see that even customs will be shrinking or depending now more on domestic. So domestic is very important for us, and also to bring some independence to Malawi, because you cannot continue begging all the time from other taxpayers outside Malawi to support our development agenda. So it is very important. Domestic is the way to go, and we have seen that even in terms of revenue mobilization, we have received more resources or more revenue from domestic, and that's the way it should be.
MRA Board Chairperson Makfasi Kawawa said the plan is being launched from a position of institutional strength, noting that the outgoing 2020 to 2026 strategy delivered an average revenue performance rate of 99%, exceeding targets in 4 of 6 years.
We want to render excellent customer service. We want to be transparent and we want to be accountable as an institution. So all that is actually translated into the various aspects of the strategy and the pillars that will drive its implementation. Yeah, first thing that has to be in place are the right people. One of the aspects that we had to consider when we framed the strategy was to ask ourselves, do we think that the structure within MRA is fit for purpose? That is to say, do we have the right setup and the right people to drive the strategy? So we'll be looking at the human resource aspect to make sure that our aspirations have got the right people that can drive the strategy. The other is about systems. So to say, do we have the right systems that will accelerate the process of ensuring that we achieve those aspirations within the strategy? So people and systems are the things that we'll have to make sure that we are constantly looking at, interrogating and so on to make sure that when we come to 2031, the aspirations that are reflected in the strategy are achieved.
UNDP resident representative Fenella Frost commended MRA for the consultative process behind the plan, which she said brought government, taxpayers, civil society and MRA officers to the same table.
I think at the heart of this plan is, of course, the issue of domestic resource mobilisation. And as was spelt out very clearly today by both the Honourable Minister and the Chair of the Malawi Revenue Authority board, to be able to combat the multiple challenges which Malawi faces, but also to be able to address the need to expand public service provision to all Malawians, regardless of where they live, regardless of their economic background. Malawi has to have sufficient resources, and at the heart of that is domestic resource mobilisation, and of course at the heart of that is the Malawi Revenue Authority. So we really welcome this strategic plan. I know it was informed by a very broad consultation with many stakeholders, including citizens, the private sector, and Malawi Revenue Authority officials across the organisation itself. So we very much welcome this strategic plan. I think the strategic plan was marked by the principle of dialogue, and we hope very much that in the implementation of this plan, dialogue and communication will continue. That's important because at the end of the day, trust and confidence in taxation and trust and confidence between the citizen and the state requires that citizens understand why they're being taxed, understand what that tax is contributing to. And of course, another critical factor is how the government communicates closely also and has close dialogue with the private sector so that the tax regime is simple enough, easy enough to understand for the private sector across the country, both those that are informal and those that are formal, that they can play their part in working closely with government that also obviously has to support the enabling environment for the private sector.
Among the flagship projects earmarked for the period are a new integrated tax administration system to replace Msonko Online, the Malawi National Single Window Trade Platform, 3 new one-stop border posts at Songwe, Chibonde and Muloza, and a big data and business intelligence system.
Mozambican and Tanzanian trucks were seen dominating the Malawi's border post with Zambia in Chinji. This was seen during the visit by Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Decentralization, Joseph Mwanamveka, who bemoaned the struggles by the country to increase exports, while goods from Zambia were seen at the Malawi side of the border being processed for entry into Malawi. The Zambian side had the majority of goods coming from Mozambique and Tanzania, with just a few trucks from Malawi. This is what the minister had to say.
We want to visit our offices, most of the offices, particularly those that collect revenue. First of all, to find out what are the challenges that those departments are facing, and also to work together to come up with strategies as to how best they can perform, and that we can collect more resources. We are doing this because, as we are aware, that as a country we are challenged. We have a lot of debts, and at the same time, donor support is coming down. So we want to now we'll be depending on local resources. So we are going around, and I'm sure you're aware that a few days ago we were at the domestic port in Lilongwe, and today we went to Mwami border, which is in Chinji, and today we are here at Lilongwe port. The idea is, as I've said, is to understand what their operations, understand what are their challenges, and if indeed they have challenges, particularly in revenue mobilization, we need to understand. We need to come up with strategies how they can collect more. So my impression so far is that I think the MRA is doing very well. I've said it, and I'm sure you have seen. Even the MRA management has published that in the previous quarter we have surpassed our target, and I've also seen that even in this month we are likely to surpass the target. But we are not relenting. We need to do more. We need to do more to collect more money, because the demand for services in various sectors, education, health, and others, are quite enormous. So we want to collect more. So my impression is that all the departments that I've visited, I think they are doing a good job. But of course, there's more to be done. We need to put up more strategies so that we can collect more. The fact that we are importing more than what we export, I think is a known fact. That's why we have a negative balance of payments at the moment. This is why we are trying to address. Actually, most of the issues we address in my budget. If you look at my budget, mostly we are trying to discourage imports, and at the same time to discourage imports but encourage exports. And also some of the measures we are to do with import substitution. If you look at the measures and the surcharges that were there, that was the purpose. So we need to do more. First, I think we need to inculcate a culture of buying Malawian products as Malawians, because I think we are all proud to buy things from outside than to buy from our local companies. I think we need to inculcate that culture, and also we need to produce more. And Malawi being an agricultural-based economy, obviously we need to produce more. Not only like tobacco, tea, coffee. I think we need to diversify.
However, station manager for the border, Tapona Nkata, noted a decline in cement imports from Zambia.
During the meeting with the minister, what was highlighted was our role, as you know, our role is to correct and facilitate legitimate trade. So the minister emphasized that we should continue correcting more for national development, and wherever we have got challenges, there is there to support us. Not only that, we also wanted to know how we are dealing with our Zambia counterparts, whereby when we went there, he was also impressed that we have a very good working relationship. Currently, as you can see, that this is Mchinji OSBB, whereby we have got one stop. When goods are coming from Zambia to Malawi, they stop Malawian side. When they're coming from Malawi going to Zambia, they stop at Zambian side. You can see that this has already assisted in a period of clearance, as in compared to what was happening in the previous times, whereby trucks could stop in Malawi and they could stop in Zambia. So as MRA, we are really impressed, and with all things constant, currently the goods are not taking long at the border. As Mchinji OSBB, we are very impressed with the visit by the Honorable Minister of Finance, because he come to appreciate the activities which are being done here, how we correct our revenues, and how we interact with our fellow officers from Zambia. Yeah, so we are very impressed, and we've gone through all the places, cargo, passengers, to see how Malawi and Zambia interact, as well as how our revenue are corrected.
This is Business Time on Times. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The NBM Power Unrestricted Pension Funds, a subsidiary of the Malawi Stock Exchange listed National Bank of Malawi, says 2026 could be a more challenging investment environment after an outstanding performance last year, which saw its funds value surged to 400.7 billion kwacha. Speaking during its first annual general meeting in Blantyre on Thursday, Board of Trustees Chairperson Michael Company said the fund has grown significantly over the past 5 years from 47.1 billion in 2021. Benedetta Chiwandamia has the story.
The 2025 great performance was attributed to exceptional gains on the Malawi Stock Exchange, which saw the Malawi All-Share Index recording a 247.63% returns. The fund also gave its members a return of 115%. Board of Trustees Chairperson Michael Company says the outlook for 2026 is less promising, with the stock market already recording weaker performance during the first 2 quarters and likely to remain bearish throughout the year, a situation he said could weigh on investment returns. He said fund managers are also having to rebalance their portfolio following the Reserve Bank of Malawi's Financial Services Directive of 2025, which requires pension funds and life insurers to invest not more than 60% of their assets in listed equities. Company said most pension funds exceeded the threshold after the significant gains recorded on listed equities in 2025, prompting fund managers to issue sell orders as they work towards compliance. He, however, said this is not easy, as pension fund managers are the biggest procurer of shares on the Malawi Stock Exchange.
Of course, it's a performance of our investments. We've got a diversified portfolio of investments, which includes listed equities. And I think, as you'll be aware, the Malawi Stock Exchange performed extremely very well in 2025. And that also contributed significantly to our performance. Yeah, I think as we've alluded to, I think the stock market contributed significantly to the performance in 2025. And I think, as we all know, the market was in a bullish mode. Come 2026, the indicators are different. We've seen the performance of the stock market not as good as it was last year, and therefore this is going to affect performance, but not meaning that all our investments are not going to perform. We have got a diversified portfolio, so we should be gaining steady returns in other forms of investments that we have. Well, this is a directive in terms of the limits that are set by the regulator for each asset investment class, and that impacts particularly the listed equities, where funds are supposed to invest not more than 60% of their assets, and most of the funds currently exceed 60%, mostly on account of the fact that there was significant gains on listed equities in 2025. And there is a window, a transition window for funds to rebalance their portfolio by September 2028. So we're working towards that to offload probably some of the equity investments in order to come down to the 60% limit that's set by the regulator. But obviously, I think, as you heard in the discussion, that's not an easy task to achieve, because, as you know, most of the investors on the stock market are pension funds. And every pension fund, if it has to offload, who is going to buy? It leaves probably individuals who cannot probably absorb the volumes that the pension funds have got. So that's where there's a bit of challenge, as you alluded to.
According to the fund's asset mix, listed equities accounted for 78% of its investments as at June 2026, down from 80% at the close of December 2025. The development has seen the fund's value decline slightly to 395.1 billion kwacha as at June 2026.
The Competition and Fair Trading Commission, CFTC, says legal appeals against its decisions over unfair trading practices and consumer rights violations are hindering enforcement of its decisions. Speaking on the sidelines of a media training in Blantyre, CFTC Director of Competition Edward Joshua says compliance with the Competition and Fair Trading Act of 2024 has been mixed, highlighting challenges including law compliance and awareness gaps. Benedetta Chuandamia reports.
CFTC Director of Competition Edward Joshua said some businesses do not comply with orders of the Commission, while some have been appealing against the decisions. Joshua also cited low awareness levels among business enterprises and consumers among challenges facing enforcement efforts, resulting in high volumes of violations but low reporting of the same. However, he expressed optimism that the long-awaited Consumer Protection Bill, which is currently undergoing review at the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, will be tabled in Parliament soon. The legislation will replace the Older Consumer Protection Act of 2003 and is expected to give the CFTC stronger statutory powers to dealing with unfair and unconscionable trade practices.
The Consumer Protection Bill is now with the Ministry of Justice. It's being reviewed, and just to indicate the fact that within that bill, the Competition and Fair Trading Commission has been designated as the enforcement agency when it comes to consumer protection issues. I think that's very clear in that. But in terms of the stage where it is now, it is with the Ministry of Justice. We hope that anytime soon we'll have that go through Parliament, which means we'll have a new version of that law which will be approved by Parliament. It will have a huge impact, as I have said earlier on, that it is very clear within that law that the Commission is the enforcement agency when it comes to consumer protection issues. So even when it comes to the Competition and Fair Trading Act, yes, we do enforce, but it's a different matter when you have the Consumer Protection Act, and it's very clear in that law that we are the enforcement agency. So it will help us to do much more than what we have actually done this far in terms of enforcement of unfair trading issues and competition issues. It is still us, but I think it is much more pronounced in the bill, in the Consumer Protection Bill, which is being reviewed at present. So we are still the enforcement agency when it comes to consumer protection, but I think it is now much more pronounced in the bill that is being revised, which is being in the law that is being amended. So that makes the message very clear to everyone that we are the institution that is responsible when it comes to the enforcement of consumer protection issues. I think that's the point that I want to drive home.
In June this year, CFTC had issued administrative monetary fines amounting to 361 million kwacha to businesses for different violations, and also ordered 6 companies to pay refunds to consumers amounting to over 126 million kwacha. The Commission had also decided over a total of 14 cases in relation to violation under the Fair Trading and Competition laws.
Well, with that story, we've come to the end of today's edition of Business Time here on Times Television. It is a magazine program where we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. On behalf of the entire production team, I am Chimo Mangazi. But always remember, if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. Bye for now.